Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here, joined by my hero John Lenhart. Hi John.
Hi.
Today is special because it's the third part of our Exhorter series. So we spoke about Exhorter. We then spoke to Dom the bom-Vargas, who's a mutual friend of ours, and Dom is Exhorter. But not just any Exhorter, he actually understands how he exhorts, why he exhorts, and in terms of how he puts himself in and out, where most people don't because they haven't learned about their intangible driver. Now, Dom and I had a really, really good interview, and Dom exhorted perfectly all the way through. But what happened was Dom actually spoke ahead of his behaviours and where he wants to be and where he's looking to go, which is fantastic. And it's amazing that he knows. But I believe today, John, as much as we're going to go over the interview, we're also going to take it back a few steps so that people who are exhorters can then talk about going forward in a way when they come back a few steps first.
Right. We're going to cover some of that. The thing is, though, is that Dom he's like 21 or 22, but he is like a very, very, very mature exhorter server. He is, even though he's future, he really handles everything so well. And so I love the interview because I love showing exhorter servers and exhorter Ys who are future exhorter administrators too, what it should look like. Dom is what it should look like. Exhorters tend to be trying to jazz everybody up and get everybody else excited. And Dom in that interview explained how he used to be like that. And then everything clicked in. He even sang, I can see clearly now because the rain is gone, and he explained how his unconscious knew this was right and clicked in. And then when he realized how to manage being an exhorter, he was able to conserve that energy and then use it in the right times and end up with more energy. So he is such a great example of how that exhorter should happen, because so many of the exhorters I deal with, they end up bipolar or they end up, on antidepressants. And he explained that, just these ups and downs, trying to give out all this energy in order to get energy back and not getting it back and being frustrated and everything. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of commentate a little on his video, because he kind of jumped ahead into some areas that you and I are going to get into now. And so I think he set us up, he exhorted us towards some things you and I really care about. So I thought the most interesting portion of that interview is he has a twin sister that he did not get along with in the past. So he's exhorter server, which is forward. His sister is teacher perceiver, which is backwards. And he could never understand why he got frustrated with her. When he understood he was exhorter server, and when he understood she was teacher perceiver, all of a sudden he was like, I get it. And really what he was talking about is emotional intelligence. We've seen a lot of emotional intelligence stuff done. I love to ask people, what is their definition of emotional intelligence? Because to me, emotional intelligence, some people even define this as resiliency, putting myself in the right spot to handle my emotions, which is really resiliency. What emotional intelligence is the ability to vibe another person, to understand how somebody else wants to be spoken to, wants to be approached. So you have enough intelligence about their emotions and what gives them energy because they're humans, you can do that. And what Dom said in his interview that I haven't heard anybody cover is that's a great ability to have, but it's the second step. The first step is you have to know yourself. You have to be intelligent about your own emotions. And I love to ask people who talk about emotional intelligence, who are you? Can you describe you? You can only help people to the level you can describe yourself. And they all run and hide. And if you watch Dom's interview, he said it perfectly. Once I understood and knew who I was, exhorter server, then I could be able to understand who other people were and talk to them the way I wanted to be talked to, because he's got to talk differently. He's got to adjust himself to talk the way they want to. How can you talk to somebody and still get energy? And this is the friendship thing, if you think about it, if you don't know yourself. So I thought Dom hit a point that I have not seen any emotional intelligence people on LinkedIn be able to explain.
Yeah, and I would like to touch on that as well. We spoke about this in one of our first conversations back almost a year and a half ago. And I found out that I was compassion server. Now, compassion server do have a sixth sense, which we've discussed, and they're able to vibe on a different level from other intangible drivers. Although, if you don't know your compassion server, you don't know you, which then it means that you're doing it automatically, but you're not understanding. Now, when you kindly gave me the words to who I am and what I do, you didn't change me. It just allowed me to come out, and it was amazing. So then that has made me better at being me and better for being there for other people, which is it's changed lives. I mean, not just mine, but other people that I deal with. Now, as we're talking about with Dom, like he's again at the age of 21, and I'm not kind of undermining the guy. I mean, he's amazing, and I'm not saying that all 21-year-olds are young. When I was 21, I was young, and I was all over the place. I'm not going to lie to anybody, right? Dom is not, and I don't believe he's never been all over the place. He was a lot more grounded at 21 when I started speaking to him than I would have been back then. And now that he's able to do this going forward from the age of 21, I mean, his life is going to be so much better than so many people in the world because he understands himself better. People believe that they've got to go through their life and learn through experience like I did. Now, it wasn't until I got to about 34, 35 years old that I understood, right? Dom has done it at 21 because he's used a certain process method that's allowed him to see. He's just cut 14 years off of learning. And it's not about having to go into these good and bad or indifferent situations and understanding how he reacts. He just knows, and he can react on purpose.
Right. So he's grown in self-esteem. What you did was you grew in self-esteem. The goal here is to help people grow in self-esteem. Self-esteem is confidence in who you are. So the first step is a person understand who they are. This is a big misconception about me is I'm not trying to turn anybody into me. I'm trying to turn everybody into more who they are. I want to help them understand who they are and then grow in confidence in that. So that's what you did. That's what Dom did. And if you listen to that interview, that's what he's saying. So now he's an exhorter server who's confident in his ability to exhort. So he's not out there convincing you and himself he can do it. He's confident. So you see a guy who's high self-esteem. And that's the goal of all this is I try to help people understand who they are so they can grow in that. And again, I'll ask people, who are you? And Dom talked about that. There are people in their 30s who don't know who they are. And you ask them who they are. No, I know who I am. Who are you? And that's the problem. So that's what we were really doing is we were growing these people in self-esteem. Dom did that. And that's what you saw, in Dom. And that's what you saw in you. And that's all I try to do is I can help you understand who you are. Dom, we learn by experience and understanding. If you learn by both, what Dom is now able to do, because he has understanding, he can talk to anybody, take their experience, sort out what's truth and what's not truth, understand their uniqueness, and say, okay, this worked for you because you're this uniqueness, I'm this uniqueness, so this will work for me in that way. And that's how he's cutting 14 years off. He's still learning by experience and the experience of other people. So this is where what Dom is doing is putting way ahead. And this is what I want to help other people do. He is genuinely interested in other people's experience because he now has a method for sorting through it and making it his truth and his experience much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can only learn through our interactions, through our actions and through our experience. For me, we don't learn by, just going through the theory of everything, as you just quite rightly said. And the way that Dom interacts is very, very clever also, because he asks the questions that are specific to what he wants to learn while learning about the other person. And again, it's another high five to Dom in the way that he acts. And again, it's a thing that it doesn't matter your intangible driver. It's a thing that most people that I believe do not do. You know, they don't try and learn. They might gain information through natural conversation, which is good. But when you're purposely asking to find out about them, to understand you and how you can be more or less of, I mean, it's almost like magic how it changes.
Right. So the thing he said, so building off that, the most interesting part of the interview to me, and the part that people don't understand, and this is, I really want to expand on this because it's going to lead towards where we're going in our interviews, is he said, if I ran a company and I was interviewing people or I was developing people, there's two things I would do. He said, number one, I would have them take the intangible driver test for all the reasons you just said. I would have them take the intangible driver test so they know who they are. And so I knew who they were, so I could figure out if the job is going to fit them or not, because your intangible driver is kind of going to determine how much effort you are going to have to expend to do that job. And so you can do any job. If your intangible driver doesn't fit a job, at least you know what your intangible driver is, and then there's a way to modify the job. And he made all those points. So the intangible driver will tell you what type of jobs you can do where you have to modify it the least and get the most energy, but it does not prevent you from doing that. We talked about Dave Chappelle has John Mayer's intangible driver, John Mayer has Dave Chappelle's, and they both do the opposite job, but they both have to go way out of their way to do it. So he explained that perfectly. And as a human resource person, he nailed it. Like, do an intangible driver test will tell you how a person's going to fit in a job and what adjustments need to be made. So he said that. The second thing he said is, I would have everybody read Atlas Shrugged. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because it's a very interesting point he made, and it's something that he's learned from me. And that is this, is that when you think about life, and you and I started this whole series, you and I talking about love. Yeah. You and I love to talk about love.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things we talked about love is giving without expecting anything in return. Without expecting is the key. Every time someone's angry, they had an expectation. So whenever someone's angry, you could say to them, what were you expecting? I look at life on a continuum from love to expectations. And so if you think about it, the government, the military, there's no love in those organizations. It's all expectations. It's all limitations. This is the way it is. Okay. And so if you go into, there's going to be a lot of angry people in the government. There's a lot of angry people in the military. And the reason why is they're completely surrounded by all expectations. It's all written out. That's it. Your marriage, your family, your friendships ought to be love. No expectations. And we talked earlier in the week that these people who date and have expectations of exclusivity and expect you to talk to me, they hinder love, they hinder the energy. Here's the issue. Where would you put business?
Well, it just depends what kind of business you're talking about, because business could be right in the middle, because it can go either way, depending on how you want to serve that person. Are you wanting to serve them for them, and then you're going to get paid, or are you wanting to get paid by the way that you serve them? For me personally, I would put business straight in the middle, because then it's a choice, and it's a personal choice how we can work and how we wish to work. I watch people constantly, how they try and promote their business. Are they promoting business to say, give me your money? Or are they promoting their business to say, I want to serve you? And this, again, it goes down to the way that their business is run. It's going down to the way that they advertise. And again, we could go into this forever, like the advertisements and the advertising that we look at is, does this person want to take my money, or are they really wanting to help us? So yeah, my personal belief is business should be in the middle.
Business is in the middle. And here's the issue. If you run a business, because you have to have expectations in business, you have to. If I am in a company and I pay money to set up advertising, I'm expecting I'm going to have a product to sell. Yeah. If I pay all this money for advertising time and we go, sorry, there's no product to sell, I'm going to be angry. You cannot run a business without some expectation. The issue is in the United States in the 60s and 70s, everybody ran the company purely like the military. And a lot of the guys who ran business, because it was all guys back then running business, they all had to serve in the military. So they came out of the military and they go, look, the military is the way to run a business. The military works. It's real simple. Just put your brain in this mode and just stay in that mode. What's so difficult? And then in the 70s and the 80s, all of a sudden everybody went, you know, running business like a military wears people out and they don't have energy. And the best businesses, In Search of Excellence was a book that talked about this. The best businesses love. The best businesses figure out what you were saying, like how can you benefit the customer? What's the customer expect? How can we fulfill their needs? Let's look to somebody else. And all of a sudden, all these books in the 80s tried to move people to the middle. Now people go, no, business should be all love. Let's just love the customer, and then they go under. Business is truly in the middle. And what makes business so difficult is you have to toggle your brain. If you family or friends, you shouldn't have to toggle your brain to expectation. And every time you have expectation in your marriage or your family or friends, it's going to go bad. And if you love in the Army, you shouldn't have to toggle your brain in the Army. You just do what you're told to do and be a robot. And there's expectations. The reason why business is so difficult for humans is we always have to go, is this an expectation or is this love? Is this an expectation or is this love? And we have to toggle. Yeah. And so that's why when you see all these business gurus talking, they sound bipolar. And if they understood a conjunctive, they'd be able to explain everything instantly. Because the conjunctive of business is you need to have expectations and you need to love, but the context is different. When do you love and when do you have expectations? When you can separate that out, you know which way to go. And the book Atlas Shrugged identifies that. The thing about Atlas Shrugged is the 1991 Library of Congress, US Library of Congress, voted the Bible as the #1 book, the most influential book ever written. They voted Atlas Shrugged #2. And Atlas Shrugged is a story. Atlas Shrugged is not a textbook, a limitation handbook textbook. It's a story. And if you read this story, it perfectly explains how business needs to be half love and half expectation, because it's story and because it's art. Yeah. And something that you and I are very passionate about is art. And what I want to talk to people about over the next couple of weeks is why art reaches all of us. Because this limitation is conscious brain, your love is unconscious brain, and stories are supposed to reach both of us. And the book Atlas Shrugged reaches all of the person. And I will tell you this, it's 30 chapters. The first 15 chapters are very limitation, very capitalism. And so people who are what I would call freedom people, I would call socialists, and I don't mean that in a derogatory term, people who are very socialist, freedom people can't make it through 5 chapters of Atlas Shrugged. All the limitation and capitalism stuff, even though they only use the word capitalist one time in the whole book, and they don't use it to promote capitalism, okay? But the first 15 chapters are very limitation, and this is how you get things done. And so these people can't read 5 chapters. And then the second half of that book is all over here because it forms a conjunctive. And these people never read the second half of the book. I am telling you, it is so rare to find someone who's read the entire book and can have a discussion in the conjunctive. I talked to people who they call themselves objectivists. That's what Ayn Rand believed in and everything. I talked to objectivists. I talked to people from all these institutes in Ayn Rand's name. And I exposed their contradictions, and they cannot have a conversation with me because they haven't read the second half of the book. All the people out there talking about objectivism have read the first half of the book, and they just blank out on the second half of this book. And Ayn Rand herself was a truth savant, which is what Dom was, which is what you were, is that she, in her book Atlas Shrugged, explained the truth perfectly. and through a story, through art. And when they asked her through a limitation in her essays to explain it, she came up with this belief called objectivism that treats everybody as a robot. And there are people against objectivists who won't listen to this conjunctive. So what's funny is there are people out there arguing for objectivism, arguing against them, and neither of them will have a truthful discussion. Yeah. And both of them have all these contradictions. So it's just funny because it's like you have this woman who wrote this amazing book, and she herself said, if you want my explanation for the truth, read this book, read this story, read this art. And yet everybody looks to her essays to argue, and she herself could not explain what she believed through her essays without a contradiction and was never settled. So art is the only way, it's understanding and experience together. Art is the only way to get the truth out to everybody. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to start talking about the role of art, what art is and how it actually gets the truth out, and how all of this arguing consciously online is just 10% of art.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there was quite a lot to say in there. I haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet, and I have to put that out there. It is something that I'm going to read, and now that I'm absolutely aware of the first half of the book, because that's the half that I wouldn't like, because I am one of these freedom people, as you know, so I would find that difficult. So now that I know it's okay, just kind of go through it, and you'll get to where it is that you want. And I'll look for the conjunctives and you know, the both sides. I really look forward to. Listen, I'll probably be more of an audiobook type, but Dom is going back to Dom. Dom's exhorting what he puts out. He will read. The reason that he'll read both sides is because he wants to take in and learn from everybody, and that's where. And we do as well. You and I both do also. But again, I'll feel too much maybe of something that I don't like, as in the first half of that book, and that would be enough to turn me off it. Whereas Dom, he's almost hungry for information, and that's where he has to know both sides, and that's where I believe that the way things are going to go for him is going to be very particularly healthy as well.
Right, and that's what he was really saying about this clicking, is he was trying to say, you know, he was very much this limitation, I'm going to be a capitalist, I'm going to make a ton of money. And then what happened was when he got through the second half, you could see him going, oh, I get it. People are human. I'm human. Yep. This whole thing clicked. And now it's about energy. It's about happiness. It's not about, why aren't you trying to make money? To be happy? Why not just be happy? Yeah. You know, and so that's the thing is when you look at something like that, and it's the art, I believe it's the art that reached him. And when I executive coach people, I have them read Atlas Shrugged because I consider it the Bible of business. What I do is I'm able to reference a scene in that. If someone else has read it and I'm trying to help somebody through a business situation, I'm able to go, remember when James met with Dagny and this happened? That's the situation you're in. And they're all of a sudden like, oh, you're right. And then bam, 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 they knock people out. And so that's like the secret weapon I've used to help people in business is if you read this book, because there's every possible interaction you could have in business is in this book, both good and bad. Yeah. And so I can show people, it's a shorthand I use to show people to say, look at that scene again, and this is how you want it to go. Look at this scene. This is how you don't want it to go. This is what's going on. This is the uniqueness. She wrote according to uniquenesses. She wrote according to thought processes. She talked about the 10 thought process, which is this, you know, ability to be focused within ease and without even trying. She wrote about flow, and the experts on Ayn Rand can't explain these passages because people know without knowing. And that group is very, objectivists are very 80. You got to know, and you got to know that you know. And the funny thing about objectivists is they don't want to be emotional. They want to be logical. And if you say something to prove them wrong, they go off. Yeah. They trigger. Wouldn't objectivists be the people least likely to show an emotion and anger? Yeah. And again, I believe that's because they don't put the emotion in for the first place, because they suppress it. And then once it's suppressed and then it's been triggered and they feel that they've been caught, that's the point where they explode
because they've been found out. And it's not just so much as an objective. A lot of people do this all through life in lots of different situations.
Right, but these people have made like a belief into, if everything was logical, everything will work. And that's why I go back to, great, I will logically tell you the right way to eat and the right way to exercise. You changing your behavior tomorrow? Well, you know, and it's just like, and these people believe in Aristotle. And I wrote an article about Aristotle believed everybody was a computer. I said, the title of my article is Beware of the Consultants Who Quote Aristotle. Because he said, if you know the right thing to do, you can't help but do it. And it's like, people know the right thing, they don't do it. He goes, well, it's a weakness of the will. Well, now he's rationalizing, he's got a contradiction, he's not addressing it, he's not growth mindset, and neither are these people. And so that's the thing is I love that book because the person who wrote it got a truth across that they themselves couldn't even explain. They were a truth savant, and I can explain it. And you end up learning more about what she's saying, and it becomes 3D, and then you're able to apply it to your life. Versus, it's just hilarious to me how easy it is to talk to anybody who says they are an expert at that book, because everybody who's an expert at that book is full of limitations, and they cannot handle passages in the second half of that book.
Yeah, and that's where I believe that my wrestle will be the first half of that book, where I feel kind of torn. But if it gets to that point at the end, that'll be a nice ending. And it just, again, is a lesson to be learned in that don't always judge a book by its cover, you know. Actually, literally just to go through and get to the end and find out, or, you know, the story that's meant to be at the end. So in terms, just to kind of finish up, in terms of Dom, okay, I want to go back to him because this is where we're going, because Dom fascinates me, and he fascinates me in different levels. And it's not that I put him up on a pedestal. It's just the way that he's kind of come through his journey so far that I really believe in him, and I would literally do anything to help the guy, as would you, because you see how much effort he's put in. Now, you were talking about how he tended to go forward, you know, so, and he went a couple of levels ahead. Where do you believe that he sees what he's doing at the moment? You know, if he's looking at towards, how far ahead is Dom looking?
The thing is what he does so well is, we call it that backward step, is he sees we all want these effects. We all want these things. But if you see it as an effect and put your brain on the cause, it'll happen. If you see it as an effect, as a cause, and you try to manifest it directly, that's not going to happen. So you should state what you want. I believe in that. But then you focus on the cause. And what Dom does a good job of is he gets to know other people first. And we said this about exhorters. They want to go to a party every day. There is one way for an exhorter to go to a party every day, is to be a party thrower. Dom throws parties for other people. He gets to know and understand other people, and that allows him to be at a party every day. So that's really where he has done this really well, is he is focused on other people. He knows his uniqueness. He knows how to run it the right way, and he takes a step back and he helps people. And I will tell you, as much as I've helped Dom, he's helped me tremendously. He has put me in touch with over a dozen servers. So Colin, you're kind of the compassion server whisperer. You are a compassion server, but you put me in touch with all these compassion servers.
Yeah.
Dom's exhorter server, and he's put me in touch with all these servers that are, they're superhuman. They are young 20-somethings. They're from all over the world. And I have the best time helping them and talking to them and helping them get forward. So Dom has helped me tremendously by facilitating me towards coaching a lot of people. So it goes both ways with Dom and me.
And I would like to just say that just before you and I came onto this call, I had a client, I think it was 3 nights ago, and she's on a kind of spiritual journey as well. She's a project manager for the Scottish Government. So she's got quite a lucrative job that's quite serious and quite intense. I just found out literally before we came on at this call that she's an exhorter server as well. And I sent the 2 videos. I've not sent Dom's, and obviously I haven't sent this because we're doing it, but I sent the exhorter server videos, and I said, watch these and let me know what your thoughts are after you come back, because I knew the server was there. but because she was quite soft and quiet, I thought there might have been compassion there as well. So one of the choices were compassion server, but the first two choices were more taken to exhorter. So it was exhorter, compassion, which takes on to the server. So it shows me that I was right to pick up on the compassion, but because she was my client, that's why she wasn't exhorting. And that's why I didn't pick up on it, because that the way that I work in certain areas that I don't ask questions, it's more about me vibing it and speaking. So I don't get that from them. But yeah, I found out she was exhorter server. And just, I know I kind of digress slightly. She came back, she said, I just looked at the thumbnail of the video that you sent me. And of course, it's you in it. Right, and that was it. And then obviously you and I started talking. So that was quite funny. But I think she's going to get a big surprise once she learns, because exhorters don't know the exhort and how they lose energy by not getting that information back until they know. And I think there's going to be a massive, probably when I come off this, she'll have done the exhorter wide. It's just going to be like mind-blowing stuff. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Dom is I would say he's the perfect, he's the right now he's the exhorter server at 100 in my mind, and I would love to show people the Dom video if they're exhorter server.
Yeah, and I will as well. And if anyone wants to reach out and believes that they're exhorter, they're welcome to come to you and I as well. And we can point you in the right direction with videos that we've done or information that we have to allow you to understand yourselves better. Because exhorters are, again, they're their own type of superhero. They can build people up, they can do it, but they lose energy so easily because people don't understand them, but because they don't understand themselves. And this is where we want things to change. They understand themselves, they understand others. It can only be growing.
Right.
Excellent. Listen, thank you so much, John. And I look forward to speaking to you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.